Commence primary ignition.
Hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to another episode of Daughters of the Galaxy. And I have a special guest host with me tonight. The incredible Catherine Cooke is here with me this week. Jamie couldn't be here. So I'm so excited to have Kat with me. She is a veritable encyclopedia when it comes to Star Wars. And what better topic than the mysterious Asajj Ventress? Welcome, Kat.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I see a few people jumping in. Todd Michael says, Catherine Cooke, where's she at? John, happy hump day. It's Wednesday. And we'll just give everybody a second to get in here and line up your StreamYard so we can see who you are. Yeah, make sure you connect your Facebook to StreamYard so we can see, as I said, see who you are. And Spencer. Hi, Sarah. Welcome. Sherry, hi. All right. So we'll give everybody another minute to get in here. We have our lovely producer, Mark, behind the scenes. So he'll be checking in the chats and in the banners across the bottom of the screen. So if you guys have any questions or anything like that, he'll be there to help us. Hi, Jeff. All right. So we are going to start. Let's see. Asajj Ventress. She's kind of got the raw end of the deal in a lot of things in Star Wars.
Yeah, be it from the journey the character has on screen and off.
Yeah.
I first saw Asajj in the now Legends canon Clone Wars 2D show, and it was the episode where Anakin and she are fighting at the Masasi Temple on Yavin 4. And I thought,
Oh, I love that episode.
I love that. I'm like, I don't know who you are, but you are so cool. And, she's not in Revenge of the Sith. And I was like, oh, shucks, I'd like to see her again. So I was happy that they brought her into Clone Wars. I think I'd actually seen the first 2 seasons of the show before I saw the Clone Wars movie. So I had seen her from there. And it's like, oh, okay, so you're Dooku's apprentice, you're assassin. And like, I wasn't really clear about how that works with the rule of 2, but I'm like, okay, I guess she's kind of like a mercenary or whatnot. But I thought she was really great at initially being so unsympathetic, and they just portrayed her initially very one-dimensionally, like she's just pure evil and savage. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine ever having any sympathy or understanding for this character until we got to season 3. And when you learn just that whole backstory and the whole culture of how the Dathomirians raised both the women and the men, it's like, man, this is really horrible. And Mother Talzin is like really a dictator to everybody on that planet other than herself.
Seriously.
And so I really was surprised at how well they were able to add a lot of depth to that character, which really enriched the rest of her arc throughout the show.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like when you first see her in the micro series, like she's just like this savage, wicked woman that is just like incredibly fast and really good with a lightsaber. And having learned everything that we learn about her in the Clone Wars, like she was taken away from the Night Sisters and sold into slavery essentially. Like Mother Talzin just lets her go. Like okay, whatever. Like just tosses her away, and it's like the first wound to her because she spends a lifetime being an abandoned person. So she gets surrendered to Halstead. I think that's how you say it. I'm not good with like
Yeah,
the
so,
crazy names.
sometimes Star Wars pronunciations are like I try and
Yeah.
pronounce Thrawn's full name, and I'm like, forget it.
It's like, oh, not helping. Um, so she ends up getting raised on Ratatak, which is his home planet, and even though she's like in slavery with him, she kind of grows to have a bond with him, and um, you know, it kind of becomes like less of a captor and more of like a friend or a father figure to her. And then tragedy strikes again. Like this girl cannot catch a break. Um, Basically, a bunch of like Weequay pirates come in and they kill her master. And again, she's on her own. But this is where the threads of fate start bringing her into the Force, and she is found by the Jedi Knight Kai Narek.
Yeah.
So yeah, Stockholm syndrome, maybe Jeff.
Perhaps, especially now that Narek is, training her and she's developing another strong bond with him, only for him to be killed as well, and her feeling abandoned by the Jedi. And it's like, okay, that's like another, leg knocked off the stool. And it's like another symptom of the Jedi not doing what they should be doing, which is saving the downtrodden people in need. Like, I remember that to me, one of the most memorable scenes in episode 1 was when Qui-Gon has absolutely no qualms telling Anakin's mother straight to her face, I didn't come here to free slaves. And it's like, you're a guest in her home. She's been taking you in, taking care of you and all of that. And you're just going to crush you can't even give her some type of something comforting or nice to say, nah, I'm not here to help you. And it's like, come on. And then you see what happens to like Asajj, and then it just rubs it
Yeah.
in even more. And that
Oh my
even
God, yeah.
relevant just this past Tuesday on Ahsoka, where even Balin Skull was saying that he says, I miss the Jedi Order, I just don't like what it became. And it's like reiterating all of these.
Oh
We've
yeah.
seen that with a lot of characters, like even in the first episode of after Ahsoka left the Jedi Order, and she meets those two sisters, and they're talking about how discouraged they are with the Jedi and stuff like that. So to see that even Asajj Ventress had that same kind of animosity, it's like adds a whole other layer of
Right.
understanding as to why she. Because I noticed in like season 1 of Clone Wars, season 2, she's really vicious and just all the way
Oh
like it's
yeah.
personal. But they never hinted that there was anything personal going on. I'm like, what is going on? She's so. It's like she acts more evil than Palpatine, even.
Yeah, there's like a level of like savagery and ruthlessness. Like you definitely get like the witchy side with her. Um
Yeah.
and
So that
just
yeah.
yeah.
So that backstory was just fantastic. I was like,
So
part of
good.
me wishes that it got its own proper arc, but rather than being like a montage. But I get it. It was like this traumatic kind of revisiting of your memories, and I thought that was just so amazing how they could just take a character who was so firmly in one camp of evil
Yeah.
and just twist it right around like that
It's
in
the
one episode.
redemption story that we keep talking about that Dave Filoni is so good at. Like just
Mhm.
this character, like you said, you don't know anything about her. She just comes off as like a ruthless and she's gonna kill everybody, and then you just kind of feel sympathetic towards her, and it's it's how exactly how you said, like the Jedi Order let her down, the Sith let her down because once she was you know being trained by Kai to use the Force and learn the Jedi ways, um ultimately, like, she ends up on her own because he gets killed, and um she's discovered by Count Dooku to become kind of his apprentice. But you know as you said, with the rule of two, you can't always be you know an apprentice in the right way, and Palpatine was not having it. So
Yeah, that was and how even though everything that motivates her and being abandoned, how upsetting that is, she has no qualms about putting Savage Opress through that horrible ritual to basically turn him into a Manchurian candidate. And it's like, okay, I get it. You want revenge, and you've been abandoned and all this stuff, but now you're just visiting the same types of evil, like forcing him to kill his own brother. And it's like, I want to feel bad for you. I did for a while, and now it's like, now you're going to do this stuff again, and it's getting back into the gray area, kind of the evil area. And so I was happy when Savage, broke free of both sides. And like, I'm done playing you guys' game.
Oh yeah, definitely. He betrayed, both Asajj and, Dooku, and was just like, whatever, I'm done with the both of you. Like, and I don't blame him. It's kind of like Bucky Barnes. Like, you get, trapped in these as a pawn in these games, and you just like, no, I'm done, and you just don't
Well,
care.
that's another thing is that Savage's arc in learning his origin, how he got there, is basically giving us all the background we didn't know about Darth Maul.
Right. It
Assuming
was
that
a
you
nice
got to
fill in.
the legend stuff, and it's like, man, that is really sad too, and in terms of that same thing happening to him.
Right. And I do think there's, as Lanny says, there's such a need to belong and like to find her place in things that she attaches herself to the like light side or dark side. Like she, you don't know what she's gonna be this week or what you're gonna deal with this week. Um, it's all in. Like, please like me. I'll do whatever you want. But again, she's been hurt like so many times. It's just it's kind of like the antithesis of Maul, where Maul just wanted to get revenge on everybody for like in the darkest ways possible. Like Asajj had a heart.
Yeah, like even in what I recall was her final episode in Clone Wars is when she's involved with that bounty hunting scheme on the train,
Yeah.
and she
So good.
actually sees what's going on, and she kind of grows a heart around it and says we probably shouldn't be doing this. Whereas Boba Fett is a bit more invested in it because he even has a sad kind of upbringing as well, being manipulated by other people and abandoned. Well, technically, he wasn't abandoned; his father died, but
Yeah.
you're seeing how these
Make
are
the
very
case.
recurring things.
Yep.
And so seeing her kind of come around a bit and overcome a bit of that, vengeance that she wanted so badly was encouraging, especially when she teams up with Obi-Wan at the end of season 4 to stop or try and, stop Savage and Maul, and that they're actually willing to let bygones be bygones for a while as they take off.
Yeah,
And
that was incredible. I was like, am I really watching this? Like, she's been trying to kill him forever, and it's just it goes to show you that she was just willing to do what it took to
be
stop the
accepted.
Sith. Yeah, and be accepted.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like even when she goes back to Talzin, and it's so another thing that's so evil about Talzin is she's speaking to Asajj almost as if Asajj is the most important person to her. Almost like you're literally my own daughter. You're the best. I'm going to help you do all this kind of thing. And yet, without even batting an eyelash, she just sells them all out. And of course, she says that probably spiel to everybody, all the Night Sisters, because she's just that evil.
Yeah,
And it's
she's
like
ends to a meme. That one, it's
yeah, and it's like you don't even care. It's like, okay, you're willing to help Asajj get Dooku because it's like a tribal thing. You came after one of us, then we're going to get you, not
right.
because she cares personally about Ventress one way or another. So that was really, dark. And I think the way they portrayed Talzin's character it could certainly inform us as to the intentions of the Mother Sisters, Night Sisters on Peridia and Ahsoka. It's like, okay.
Totally. Oh my gosh.
And it makes
They
it
were
worse.
twisted, so twisted.
Yeah.
It was crazy to see the Night Sisters back in some form, even though like
It's so
we
cool to see them in live action too.
and their
Like the
voices.
closest thing we've had to live action that was sort of like the Powans on Utapau and Revenge of the Sith, because their skin kind of looks the same color tones, the same type of, not the same shade of red, but that same type of regalia. So seeing it actually on the Night Sisters more screen accurate and everything, I thought was really nice, and I think they did a better job at making that more faithful to the cartoon than say they did with the Grand Inquisitor in Kenobi.
Definitely.
Yeah, because they actually looked like the Night Sisters were like, oh man, this is really. And I've always been fascinated about that lore anyway, because it's never really been clearly defined
Right.
what exactly the Night Sisters had. Like even the Jedi are kind of perplexed as to how they use the Force. Like Dooku was totally, perplexed by it, and obviously Darth Sidious respected it because he went to them to get an apprentice. So, and as we saw in an earlier episode of Ahsoka, when the mercenary, when the whatever his name was, he gets, Ahsoka is fighting him in the Red Forest, and she kills him, and it's just the green mist that we know the Night Sisters conjure. So it's like he wasn't even real. He was just like
A ghost or a
yeah, like a
zombie.
right. And that seems to be what they're doing, because they're going through with Project Necromancer that the Shadow Council spoke of in Mandalorian season 3, and it's like, oh geez, are we going to see zombies in like live action Star
It's
Wars?
so wild. I know. I really kind of hope so because it would just
Yeah.
kind of further the Night Sister lore and like
Mhm.
as you said, we keep getting like little snippets of things, but I don't even think we've touched the tip of the iceberg on these ladies and gentlemen. So it's just the
Wait,
fact that they're the fact that they're willing to just I can definitely see where they got the inspiration for the Night Sisters. Like I kind of see it as like in Frank Herbert's Dune, the Bene Gesserit, and
mhm.
especially how they talked in Ahsoka with that like it sounds like all of them are whispering at once, but it's just one of them, and it was so crazy to just hear that like haunting voice, and
and
I oh so good.
And then I remember in Clone Wars season 6, there was that other Talzin episode where she's going to a temple to perform that bizarre ritual with the stars in alignment and everything. And I recognized that, well, that temple kind of place she's at looks just like the one we saw in the third and fourth episode of Ahsoka, where they were using the
Yeah,
map. So it's like, okay, so this can be, you could use that for a star map, you could use it to like channel the cosmos. And I'm like, was Talzin channeling the power of the Night Sisters all the way across the universe? Maybe. Because
yeah, wow,
because that's something, because I noticed they do kind of look the same, the designs of those temples. Even when Ahsoka found the map in the first episode, it's like another, that temple was on a different planet, not Dathomir, but another planet in the Star Wars galaxy. And it's like, oh, okay, so they kind of get around, and there's different settlements. But it is a lore that I've been really interested in diving into. But given that we see how Ventress is more or less a reflection of the rank and file women of the Dathomir witches, whereas Mother Talzin and these other Mother Night sisters on Peridia are like the hierarchy. And then we see how with Maul and Savage being like the rank and file men and how they're treated. And I noticed that the bandits who attacked Sabine in that latest episode were also wearing red and red robes.
mm,
And I wonder if they might be Zabraks, because they have those big, wide, like helmets
yeah.
that be
Like
covering horns, maybe.
straight out, yeah.
You
That's
know,
what I was wondering too. It's like that red color is
so on the
not
one,
very common.
yeah, so on the one hand, I really like the mystery associated with them, because they're not like over explaining it. But on the other hand, I want to see a lot more, because Ventress had such a good arc, and it kills me that the show got canceled when it did, because they didn't get to finish her arc. Because it would have been nice to see it like from beginning to end.
Yeah,
Even granted, that was because the animation was so good, and Nikki Futterman was so good voicing that character, and I just
yeah.
wanted to see the end of that story.
And when Grey Delisle took over, she's another amazing voice actress, and she captures like the wickedness. She's done Azula in Avatar: The Last Airbender. She's done Icky Vicky on Fairly Odd Parents. Like she's really good at playing like wicked and bad ladies. So I honestly think that yeah, someone needs to. Can you imagine? I want to see that for Halloween this year. Like somebody, please do this. I will give you $1.
Yes.
um, but um, a question that Mark asked in the chat earlier. Do you think that given everything that we know about Asajj and how um, between the Night Sisters and her two of her masters dying and her falling in love with Quinlan Voss only to kind of lose him to the dark side and then like rediscover the light in herself and sacrifice herself to save him. Do you think, knowing all that we know about Asajj, do you still think that Darth Maul is the most tragic person in Star Wars because he's just not able to forgive, or he just spends his whole life hell-bent on revenge?
Uh,
Unlike Asajj, who probably would have had that more if she wasn't,
I mean,
so entranced by the light side as well.
I think Asajj is probably more tragic because of just the sheer amount of time she's been abandoned and just bushwhacked by everybody else, and the fact that she finally does find something pure that she can, connect with in Quinlan and their love, and how that just not even that. You can't even have that. Whereas Maul, it's like, yeah, he didn't know any better because he was, went through the same, cycle that Savage did, became Sidious's apprentice. And it's not so much that it's like he's scapegoating Kenobi because it's not so much that Kenobi beat him. It's that his master decided to drop him like a rock after that. Like his whole purpose for living is now gone. And he's just going to blame Kenobi, like, oh, this was your fault. And it's like, well, not really. You kind of let your guard down and you were just being manipulated by somebody monstrous. And
Exactly.
even though he tried to go on a revenge against Kenobi, he decides eventually, it's like he subconsciously recognizes that Palpatine's the bigger enemy because he
Right.
goes about building the Shadow Collective and I'm going to go to war with them. But then the moment Sidious shows up, you see that fear in his eyes. It's like on the one hand, he wants revenge, but part of him can't betray his master. And he's initially like almost obedient and apologetic when Sidious shows up. And then he's finally able to overcome that to try and fight him. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of sad, but when you see the amount of innocence that Darth Maul is just willing to mow down to get what he wants, because it's like, I can't get my master right now, so I'm just gonna kill Kenobi. So, we can't find him. Oh, we'll just make him come to us by killing up a bunch of civilians. Like that's the type of dark that can't be redeemed, and so,
Right.
and they've still never really answered why he was on Malachor, only that he got stranded there, and there was this ancient Sith weapon. And so
Yeah.
when he manipulates Ezra and gets to Tatooine and finds Kenobi, I think it's just the shock that, wow, Kenobi's still alive. Like he survived Order 66. Like I loved that bit when he finds out that, oh, it happened. Master's plan came to fruition and all that. And now he's just, he has nothing left to live for at that point. It's like, well, my master's now, emperor of the universe. The evil plan worked. I already failed trying to catch him. I lost my brother. I'm not going to be able to beat him. So I have nothing left to live for than to go after Kenobi. And so
Yeah.
that was kind of tragic when it took Kenobi nearly pretty much killing him, mortally wounding him, for him to finally let go. Because it's like, the fact that he does let go and says about Luke, he will avenge us, goes to show that he doesn't really hate Kenobi then, because otherwise he wouldn't say that to him. It's like he was
Yeah.
just doing that because he just didn't, like that was the last task his master gave him to do. And so he's going to finish that task, even though he still hates his master. It's like this, he can't, that's how sad, how brainwashed he is that he can't, he wants to kill his master and avenge himself, but he can't bring himself to do it. So
There's no peace.
he
Yeah.
wants me to kill Kenobi, so I'll go through with it and kill Kenobi, and I'll tell myself, oh, I'm going to scapegoat him, this is his fault, but then he kind of knows that it really wasn't Kenobi's fault, which is why he kind of forgives him at the end, and even that
Yeah.
was great. I thought, I would have loved, given that they reshot the epilogue of Rebels in live action for Ahsoka, I would have loved it if they had done that in the Kenobi show, like Maul's ending in live action.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That would have been
Totally.
so that would have been so right and so I would love to see that. But
I
yeah,
honestly, yeah, I honestly think where Asajj, like as you said, she's been looking for a place to belong, like somebody to love, like ultimately somebody to love, whether it's light side, whether it's dark side, she just wants to belong somewhere. And yeah, Lanny nails it. Like Maul, just like revenge, revenge, revenge. He's like driven, literally mad by revenge because it cost him half of his body, and the Night Sisters also are responsible for like messing with his mind and body and building him into that like, you know,
yeah,
crazy monster spider legs made of droid parts kind of thing, and then bringing him back to the sane world and giving him nicer robot legs. um but it's revenge for two different reasons. Like revenge because she was taken away from what she loved so often, and revenge for like, not being able to be what I wanted, my master wanted me to be, kind of thing. And
well, yeah,
it's
because
it's two sides of the same coin.
we saw that with Maul when he first showed up in Clone Wars again, where it's kind of like Shelob's lair from Lord of the Rings. He's like this big
Yeah,
spider arachnid. He's got all these dead corpses that his snake has been bringing him, and he's just completely beside himself with insanity because he can't. Like again, his whole life has just been upended by this one failure, and he just can't fathom how to move forward until like you mentioned, it took his brother taking him to Mother Talzin, and she used her magic to kind of like he's coaxing her like a cat with a toy, like lure, follow the laser light cat to get inside the room. And then when he gets there,
totally.
Talzin kind of messes with his mind a bit
Yeah.
and gives him a new. And that's because that's another thing is that it was more or less Talzin who gave him the idea to no, go kill Sidious for me, because she views him as, an adversary, and that eventually came to light when Dooku. It's not just that he's trying to avenge himself for Talzin's attempted assassination against him. It's that he recognized that no, she's a legit threat, especially to Sidious. I need to get rid of her, and that's why he sent Grievous to come in and just wipe him out. So yeah, it is sad what happened to Maul, but I think just because of the sheer quantity of it happening to Ventress so many times over, just makes it sadder. Not that excuses or redeems him. I don't like the word redemption all the way. Like, yes, Vader came back to the light side to make the right decision and killed the Emperor, but that does not redeem him of all the horrible things he did. And if he had lived, there's no way Luke is going to be able to walk him into Bright Tree Village. It's like, that's not going to work for so many reasons, let alone, Han standing right there. That's done. You're done.
Yeah, Mark agrees with you.
Yeah,
so does Lanny.
And so when Luke is like, okay, Luke, I get you want to save him, but what do you really think is going to happen here if you manage to get, it's like, come on. So yes, I would call it a different thing. Yes, he, like the title says, Return of the Jedi. He returned to do the right thing. No, I don't consider that redemption. It's a big thing that he did, getting rid of Darth Sidious, at least for a while. But I remember in Kenobi, one of my favorite thing in Kenobi, which is a show I didn't like, but watching Vader walk down the street and how vicious he is when he kills all those kids and stuff. He's just snapping. I'm like, this guy is pure evil. In Revenge of the Sith, all it took was him walking in the Jedi Temple, seeing the kids in the main council chamber. All he had to do was ignite his saber and give a look. And it's like, I'm sorry, this guy's not getting redeemed for anything. It's just, and the same with Maul. He's done such horrible things. Ventress, for the most part, never killed kids. She never, when she was mostly killing people in combat, so that wasn't as bad.
Yeah.
So I think she has qualifies more for an actual redemption, which she does have eventually. I just, again, wish that they would have the time to, go back and finish that story.
And she's responsible for kidnapping little.
No, that's right. Yeah, I forgot that. I always forget that because I've only seen that movie like maybe twice.
Yeah, so she's responsible for all that, and again, it's just anything to punish the Jedi for something and get back into her master's good graces, even though she can't be an official Sith Lord because of the rule of two. So it makes me sad for her because she's on the bench and she's kind of relegated to being an assassin instead of what she really wants to be. And as we know, the Sith don't care what you want as long as you're following the rule of two. And again, they'll toss you aside no matter what. And when when Palpatine makes Dooku abandon her and essentially kill her, but she makes it through. I did feel bad for her. This is something she wanted. She was Dooku's assassin. She gave Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka so much trouble, and she was responsible for so much chaos. And he just is like, no, you can't have an apprentice. There can only be two.
Well, I'm reminded of before it became Legends, the Darth Plagueis novel, because according to the timeline, Palpatine kills Plagueis during the timeline of Phantom Menace when Padme and is testifying at the Senate and Qui-Gon is at the Jedi Temple. And so that means he permitted Palpatine to have apprentice, but probably because of Maul in that movie is being treated very much like an assassin in much the same way that Dooku is Ventress. And even though Maul was given the Darth title, they've never really gone in deep on Sith lore as to what exactly does that mean? Is that in violation of the rule 2 to have Darth, or is that just showing your allegiance to them? Because he basically is, a samurai. Like he's based on. He's going to follow orders. He's an assassin. He's going to do this, and that's the same thing Ventress is doing. And so it's kind of poetic that, as it turns out, when we saw Clone Wars, they're both from the same species, essentially, or both from the same planet and the same culture. Right. And just how the Sith use them, Mother Talzin and the Night Sisters use them, and so I really did like how they did. Part of me wishes that she and Obi-Wan, when they teamed up briefly, would have had a conversation, because they took off and that was like the end of the episode. And then when they the following season, you don't really hear exactly how that ended. I guess they just agreed to, well, okay, you get, we win this one, you can go, kind of thing. But part of me wishes that she told him, what her beef is with the Jedi, and to see what he would say. Like I was reading again the From a Certain Point of View book on Star Wars, and there's a chapter in there where he's conferring with Qui-Gon, and it's explained that the reason Obi-Wan didn't just ask Qui-Gon, "Hey, what the heck happened with Anakin? You said he was going to change everything," is because he didn't want to bring it up because he knew it would be a sore subject. And Qui-Gon confirms that even he made mistakes because he didn't see that coming either. Uh, and so maybe he wouldn't want to bring it up. But so I thought Ventress, it would have been great if she brought that up and talked about it some more because she clearly is somebody Obi-Wan could have reached because she's not because again she wasn't somebody who was pure evil. She was striving to try and get away from that. She didn't have a complete mental breakdown like Maul did when her master dropped her like a rock. She decided to be a person of action and go back to Dathomir and engineer a revenge plan and all that kind of stuff. Whereas Maul just kind of skulked away into a dark hole, and so I guess that's because the women, even though the like Mother Talzin manipulates everybody in Dathomir, the witches still have a higher ranking than the men, and maybe that she had more agency, and that's why she didn't bundle it, or maybe she's just better built. Some people are better, more mentally tougher than that. So that's why I just wish the characters like that got a lot more time and attention, especially when they went back to work to finish Clone Wars. But unfortunately, they only got to do 12 episodes.
Right. Yeah. But there is a very interesting story that kind of delves into the lore of the Night Sisters. I totally forgot about this, but it just hit me when you were talking about Talzin and stuff like that. Anne Convery, who is Dave Filoni's wife and a very talented writer, she wrote a short story in the Clone Wars Stories of Light and Dark book called Bug, and it's about the Night Sisters and things like that, and it just delves further into their lore. But I haven't read it in a while, and I'm just trying to remember. I know it exists. I'm just just kind of like burial pods and what they do, the Night Sisters do when they die and things like that. Um, Nature versus magic and things like that, and um, the other types of witches that might inhabit Dathomir and things like that. And um, she said, and looking at an interview that Anne had, the Night Sisters fascinated me. I had questions about Dathomir and the other types of witches who might inhabit it, and while I love how powerful and take no prisoners the Night Sisters are, I started thinking, what's the opposite of that? A solitary witch whose focus wasn't making war, but making beautiful, useful, everyday objects came to me as the answer to that question. So it's kind of like the antithesis of those evil witches and them just using people for their magic and their power plays and things like that versus someone who just wants to live and create things.
Well, it was kind of like what Moff Gideon's whole thing was with wanting Grogu. He wanted to figure out how to harvest that Force ability to infuse it in his Dark Troopers to make like a whole army of, Force-sensitive warriors. And
Yeah.
I take it that Project Necromancy was the next step because, again, that storyline with Mother Talzin in season 6 was her trying to harvest other souls to extend her own life. And
Yeah.
with Thrawn now involved somehow with Project Necromancy, I don't think it's a surprise that it might end up on Exegol at some point.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I have a feeling that's not the last we're going to see of his deal with the Night Sisters. And I think they're kind of stranded there too. So I don't know if they
Yeah,
came with him or if, it was just they were
I
already
think
there. And
well, I think the idea is that because it was explained earlier that that the Jedi based the hyperspace lanes in ancient Purgle migration trails,
yeah.
and so that means somebody from the planet Peridia, one of the Night Sisters or somebody there, had to make the journey to the Star Wars galaxy, charted the path somehow to make a map, which they had on that other planet where Ahsoka finds it. But apparently, they didn't make the journey back to Peridia to show them the coordinates. Otherwise, it seems like because Morgan Elsbeth and the witches are telepathically communicating, they could have just told her where it was, but they didn't. So it seems like they didn't. It seems like whoever made the map originated from Peridia, because if they had come from the Star Wars galaxy and gone to Peridia, then the witches would have the coordinates too.
Oh,
So
definitely. Yeah.
I guess, and like Ezra says, he didn't know where where the Purgle were taking him. They just took him there because that was the channel, the direction that they were going. And kind of like Ahsoka says, oh, it's just fate that Sabine opened the map. It's like, well, maybe it was fate, the will of the Force that the Purgle took Thrawn and Ezra to the Night Sisters to begin Project Necromancer, whatever that's going to manifest itself as. And so we'll see how that pays off. And I take it might tie into the sequel trilogy at some point, and therefore everything will tie in and make sense that, bringing about the end of the Sith once and for all, maybe. But
Yeah,
I do like the idea that the Night Sisters may have originated from another galaxy. That's kind of cool. And maybe that explains why the Jedi and the Sith from the Star Wars galaxy don't really know much about their powers,
exactly.
because they don't have a strong foothold in the Star Wars galaxy other than a couple places. They don't
Yeah,
come from there.
exactly.
That's
And they
why they're
don't really
tempted.
like dig into their own magic and their own powers. Like they just kind of like, oh, you use it for peace or you use it for evil means. Or you don't delve into the extent of what your powers can do. And I feel like that's what allows Asajj to kind of switch sides so easily because she was taken away from Dathomir at a very young age. So she wasn't a full-fledged Night Sister at the time. Like she wasn't as vested in the magic as they are. So I don't know. It's kind of like, is she an imposter or is she just trying to live up to their ideals? But it still allows her to be seen as less than by Mother Talzin and her disciples. And
Well, I think that's also because she never got to stay there and be raised there because Talzin sold her into slavery. And then, when that didn't work out, she started to become kind of a Jedi, learn the ways of the Force. It's like she's kind of mixed now, where she has some of that Night Sister magic and some of that traditional Jedi Force magic. And now, having then in turn been hired by Dooku, she's now learning, being taught some of the ways of the Sith as well. She's like this trifecta of different interpretations of the Force, which is probably why Talzin doesn't like her very much, because, oh, I can't have somebody with that potentially that much power, threatening me. So it's like, get everybody out of the way. And then Talzin seemed to again to be speaking for that other, even older, more decrepit witch. I can't remember her name. The one that gets, technically they don't die; they kind of just disappear and become spirits. Like what's it,
oh,
Killian Duncan mentioned in a behind the scenes interview. He's like, well, when they were killed, who said they were ever alive to begin with?
oh yeah.
You're into
Um,
spirit. One could argue, but so
yes.
yeah, I think she. That's what I think makes her an interesting character. She's kind of a reflection of all three at some point. I mean, granted, we didn't get to see the Jedi side of her too much, not until, again, more of that was in the novel Dark Disciple, and then her final Clone Wars episode where she does the right thing and saves the girl from the train. And so we would have gotten to see the payoff of that arc if they had finished it. But
Yeah. I mean, it's really insane that I feel like maybe Dave will go back to her at some point. Like, I feel like there's a lot more about her that's unfinished. And it's kind of why we haven't heard anything else. Even though we know in like the book Dark Disciple, she dies and things like that. Um, she I feel like there's so much more to her that we weren't really given. And
mm-hmm.
just like little snippets of things. And her teaming up with Ahsoka was a really cool thing to me too, because not only is she given Ahsoka so much grief, and um, her lightsabers were stolen by Barasafi to kind of frame her for bombing the temple. Um, but them going on a mission to kind of clear Asajj and get to the bottom of things, that was really cool and unexpected. And um, I kind of wanted to see more of it. Like, I feel like there's so many other little tales that we could go into with her. And
Yeah, it feels like she was on board with that mission because, oh, Ahsoka got screwed over by the Jedi. I got screwed over by the Jedi. Let's team up and
friend,
take down the Jedi.
yeah,
Let's take
yep,
them down. Type thing. Which is why I thought it would have been interesting if once Ahsoka made the decision to leave, if she had maybe sought out Ventress.
yeah, that would have been
That could have been
something.
something. Because you could
I
tell even when they're working together that she's, they're actually connecting. They're actually talking. It's not like Asajj is just some evil. She's not an evil Sith. She's not just that evil witch anymore. There's like there's a person in there. There's somebody you could have empathy with, and you
right,
could connect on a deeper level. And it's like, unfortunately, that doesn't happen, as we know, because of the Dark Disciple novel. Granted, I wonder though if the Dark Disciple novel had never been written, and that whole arc had never been written for Clone Wars, if maybe Dave would have done that instead after Ahsoka left. Like maybe have her and Ventress meet up again and
yeah,
see where that would have gone.
Oh,
Because you never know with Night Sisters, because they have this odd magic. She could come back somehow through the. I mean, of course, it's Star Wars. No one's ever really gone.
no one's ever really gone.
Yeah,
Oh my God, Jeff. Yeah, no redemptions. Everybody just
you
gets
get
screwed
screwed
over.
up.
um, the thing that I liked the most about her and Ahsoka teaming up, and as you said, it's again the two separate sides of the same Dathomirian coin with Maul and Ventress and Ahsoka and Ezra, where Maul is like whenever he talks to Ezra, he's talking to him about trying to get him to do something. Like it's something manipulative. But when we have Asajj and Ahsoka, it's like just talking about her life and just kind of bonding with her. This is what the Jedi do. This is what happens, and you got to kind of make your own way. Like it was encouraging her to just to tread her own path and not listen to either side of things. And it was just the parallels, but the differences between the two is really kind of fun to me, and also very tragic because yeah, I just kind of wish it could have been more.
Yeah, and I think part of that is a symptom of the fact that they're trying to tell this whole story in the context of Clone Wars when they had so many other things to get into, and
Mm.
which was why I kind of wish that they would do these like side films or side arcs that don't necessarily have the Clone Wars name on it, like Tales of the Jedi, for instance,
Yeah,
like something like that. They could just do that and finish Asajj Ventress' story with the Dark Disciple. Just do that, Uh,
yeah, Jeff agrees with you.
yes, Tales of the Sith. Just do that. Cause sort of like yeah, that major, arguably the biggest cliffhanger in all of Clone Wars was when, Palpatine kills Savage and he takes Maul prisoner, saying, "Well, I have better plans for you." And then they didn't bring him back in season 6, and then they didn't bring him back or by the time they brought him back in season 7, they clearly skipped over that entire thing and they relegated how he got away to this comic book, which is vintage Star Wars action adventure stuff, but it was just relegated to a comic, and they didn't even do like a brief recap to explain why is Maul back exactly. So it's
Yeah,
like this
where has
odd
he
gap.
been?
Yeah, it's like this odd gap in the story. Wait, how did you get away from Palpatine? What's going on? So yeah, Tales of the Sith, great idea, Jeff. We should definitely get on that. We need.
Yeah, I'm campaigning hard for that because I think it would be fascinating. Like as you see, there's backstories to everything. There's reasons why people are the way they are. I don't think, well, probably with the exception of Palpatine, I don't think everybody was born into the level of evil that they get into. Although there's maybe one or two things, but not all of them. But um, I find it fascinating. Like with the one with Dooku, and you just see him outside of Qui-Gon's tree, and it's just like, oh man, like it kind of hurt because it's like he went bad. He went badder than bad. Like he was just tossing people aside, doing whatever Palpatine said. He said jump. He said, when do you want me to come down, kind of thing. But there was
That
a
that was
beginning to that. So
yeah, because that was really tragic. Because when you find out that Mace Windu is playing politics rather than doing the right thing, and
right.
Dooku, you're giving Dooku ammunition to leave, and then when Qui Gon told him what was going on, and it's like, well, why didn't you go with him? It's not like you were doing anything, but to hear afterwards that he's lost Qui Gon, and you see Yaddle is standing there watching him, standing next to the tree, and senses the resentment in him as to what happened, um, and that's why he has no qualms about expressing his rage over that to Palpatine directly. Like, you weren't supposed to do this, which is an even crazier thing to think about because, well, I guess this is canon, so it's different. Because if the Plagueis novel was still fully canon, that means Plagueis is still alive at this time, or just recently died. So at one point you had Palpatine with his own assassin and Darth Maul, his own apprentice, and another apprentice teaming with Dooku, and then Plagueis on the side. So there's like 4 of them in the mix around
Oh
this
yeah,
thing.
he was like, "Forget it. I'm making my own rules. I'm gonna have as many apprentices as I can possibly have, but then I'm gonna pit them against each other because I like being, puppet master." And yeah,
Oh yeah, because he was going to need Dooku at that point anyway, because he was going to be the politician that he was going to need to stir things up. Because
mhm.
one of my qualms with the prequels, and they never really did explain why the separatist movement started. There's a lengthy, lengthy Wikipedia article about it that gets real. I have to check the sources on where they're getting their information, but because it was something that just seemed like an utter convenience that all these guys just left the Republic. Okay, why? It's like, oh, Dooku told them to. Okay, well, why they listen? It's like, well, I'm not really sure.
Like, what
But yeah,
does he have on these people that just made them just go, okay, fine, I'm leaving? Like, yeah.
or maybe it was maybe they were just disgusted with the way the Republic handled the whole Naboo situation. It's like, really, you want to keep debating this and you're not going to help them or something? Who knows? But yeah, so then that all circles back around to people like Ventress, who's just being caught up in all of these other people's machinations, and nobody ever asks her, "What do you want to do with your life?" She never gets to ask herself what she wants to do, not until she meets Quinlan Voss and makes like a decision for herself that I love this person, I'm going to stay with this person, which is why it's an even bigger shame that it didn't get shot, because that way you could have the
I know.
completed arc sort of there.
I haven't read the book. I do have it, but I haven't read it yet. I just bought it before I moved last year, so it was in packed up in the boxes. But it's kind of tragic how she finally gets like Anakin and Obi-Wan to help her rescue Quinlan when he's captured by Dooku's Confederacy and tortured for months, and he's already gone full dark side, and she's just it's jarring to her because this is a man that she fell in love with while she was training him, in Night Sister magic and dark side ways to go kill Dooku and finally get rid of him. And here he is being broken by Dooku. So if anything, it just kind of furthers her vengeance to kind of get back at Dooku in some way. And um, the fact that he was sent again, like he didn't believe that he was fully turned to the dark side, and the fact that he was sent again to go kill Dooku and um by the Jedi Council. Like they were like, "Oh, okay, well we'll just have him go and get rid of Dooku," and she went with him. And it was just her getting through to him, like her for once being on the side of good and just being like, "No, you can't do it this way. It it's dark side, and that's not who you are." Um, that to me, I would have loved to see that animated out in the Clone Wars and just added further onto things. Yes, very Adam West Batman and Eartha Kitt Catwoman. Like they had phenomenal chemistry in that show, and I really think like she was sent to save him, whether it cost her life. I wish it didn't. Like I'm so tired of women just dying to like redeem the men. Like it's just so frustrating to me.
Well, even she was able to acknowledge that the Jedi shouldn't be tasking you with an assassination mission, because that is a dark side thing. They're wanting you to be a murderer to prove your loyalty to a peaceful organization. It's
Mhm.
like,
Like
of
you're
these
supposed to
people,
be the
it's like,
Jedi. Come on.
all of which came roaring back with a vengeance in the Last Jedi. It's like, yep, this had to end. It had to stop. It's getting out of control. Which is why
Right.
I'm really intrigued as to what Balin Skull is up to when he says that he misses the Jedi, but doesn't like what they became, and still like when I love that when he's talking about who Ahsoka is, or who Sabine is rather, and uh, Hati says, "Well, didn't you train me the same way?" He's like, "No, I trained you to be better." And he snaps at her really quick because he's even emphasizing that no, you're going to be better than they were. You're not going to fall into those same pratfalls that they did, type of thing. Which is why
Yeah.
he stopped her from killing Sabine. He's like, "No, we're keeping our promise. We're not gonna be like them."
Right. We're not going to be a pawn in anybody's game. Like we're going to
Yeah,
get what we want out of this mission. And that's what I also found really fascinating. Like the Night Sisters take one look at Sabine and goes, "She reeks a Jedi. She's dangerous." Even though Balin Skull is ex Jedi and he's trained a Padawan, he's not a threat. That's something
yeah.
that really kind of
They say that directly and angrily about Sabine, but they're not going to say that about Balin. Maybe because Morgan Elsbeth is like kind of backing him up. Oh, I can sponsor him, or I can vouch for him, type of thing. But
yeah.
then no
They're
sooner than
mercenaries. They're cool.
yeah, but no sooner than they leave the room, Thrawn is like, "No, you can send them to kill. We're gonna. Well, you can keep your promise by letting her get back to Ezra. Then the deal is off because you've hauled up your end of the deal. Then you guys can go kill her." Then he turns to the Night Sisters like, "Okay, we'll just get rid of them. We don't need them." Or, he doesn't trust them. It's over. He's just kind of reading them like a book because that's what Thrawn does. And so that's again, everybody getting caught up in everybody else's machinations.
Right? Oh my god, it's so twisted. It bothered me because I'm like when she first says it and she goes, That one reeks of Jedi. I was like, where's she pointing? Because I just, and then it like zooms over to Sabine, and Sabine's like, me. I really thought she was talking about Balin, and I'm not convinced that.
Yeah, that would have made sense.
Yeah, they were entirely wrong about it. Yes, back to Ventress. Sorry, we're going off into Ahsoka territory. Um, I don't think that, um, as I said about Maul, I don't think Asajj had her whole life fed by vengeance. It was more just like loneliness and the need to belong. Is why she partnered with the bounty hunters led by Boba Fett. And as much as she butted heads with Boba Fett, like I really feel like this is what I was worried about watching that arc. I thought she was going to kill Boba Fett so many times because of how mouthy and rude she was to him. Like obviously I know Boba doesn't die. He obviously grows up, ends up in the original trilogy and things like that. But like the fierce warrior assassin Asajj that I was thinking of during that arc, like she kind of develops a little bit of sympathy towards him because he's such a young kid and he's out here with these bounty hunters, and she probably bonded with that loss and that need to belong somewhere that Boba has, and I think that's where she found the connection with him, and ultimately what kept her from killing him because he was such a brat. But um, um, I really liked her bounty hunter arc. Like I think that's probably one of my favorite Asajj moments was just her doing what she needed to, not on the Jedi side, not on the Sith side, just living her life for her, not a pawn in anybody's game.
Yeah.
What was your favorite?
Favorite like episode?
Favorite episode, arc, whatever of Asajj.
Uh, I really like the one where you get to find out all about who she was when she goes back to Dathomir, because that was really effective. Usually, you can't get away with trying to do all this explain-a-vision and oh, here's an entire wealth of information of her backstory in like 5 minutes. Usually, it doesn't work. Somehow, it works. It's like they turned that character on a dime. It's like wow, you know.
Yeah.
Because usually, if you have to get people to like kind of like when you introduce a new villain and they do that horrible cliche where we're gonna get people to fear the villain, but the new villain, and get the audience to respect them by immediately having them kill a beloved legacy character. It's like, no, why don't you write the character better and establish why we should be afraid of them rather than just having them take a cheap shot? Kind of like in that horrible, Legends book where they begin a whole arc by killing off Chewie just because his name wasn't on the list of those who can't kill. And that was another cheap way of getting readers. It's like, oh, this is how bad the new bad guys are. It's like, or you could just write the bad guys better. So you don't have to just, yeah, if you want to do that eventually, you could build up to that, but don't just start with that as cheap. So I didn't think that with Asajj being so firmly evil and just almost demented levels of savagery that there's no way they're going to be able to bring that. But to pivot like that and just, it's like on paper it shouldn't have worked, but somehow it did, and I think that was probably my favorite Ventress moment.
I think that's a testament to the character building that Dave Filoni does. Like he, as you said earlier, he can take like characters that you don't really have a lot of backstory with and don't really see a lot of screen time for, and just kind of work them into like a brand new thing, and it's gorgeous. And that's one of the things that I appreciate the most about him and his storytelling ways. Like
Mm-hmm.
characters you find interesting, but you love even more once they're kind of shown a light on. So,
Yeah.
and I definitely think he did that with Asajj, and ultimately, she's not really a villain for villain's sake. Like she's an important part of Star Wars lore, and I want to see more. Like I'm greedy.
Well, I mean, it is true that when they have things like the production getting interrupted and canceled and not being able to finish things, so that kind of makes it more of a almost Frankenstein's monster type thing
Oh
where
yeah,
you have to kind of like where you have to you have to follow this story, you have to read or watch this show for a while, then you have to read this comic, then you can go back to the show or watch this movie. It's like it's all jumbled and all over the place. It's not as streamlined as say the characters from Rebels are, but even now Rebels have made the jump to live action, so it's like and with Zeb showing up briefly and what was it, Mandalorian season 3, and so it's like
right.
that kind of zigzag all over the place to follow the story now. Which is why I wish that sometime they will come up with a new character like brand new, not tied to anybody else, not related to anybody else, not an orphan. We've done that too many times. Just a new character and have a few movies, maybe four, however, just tell their whole story in like one media format, be it on TV or in a live action or an animation or in a movie, and without having to bounce all over the place to try and connect the dots. So I
I
think that
really
is,
hope,
yeah.
yeah, I really hope that's what they do in The Acolyte. Like I'm
Mhm.
banking so much on that. Like I want them to have these characters in their own universe, as you said, not tied into anything. Something fresh, something new. You can have a little bit of the lore, that's fine, because I feel like in the Sith and the Jedi, and especially with,
Oh
you
yeah, if
know,
it's a
Night
Sith
Sister magic.
acolyte,
Yeah.
yeah.
Night Sister magic and things like that. You kind of have to build it in a little bit, but I hope it's done in a smart way where it's not like, oh my God, here's the Skywalker saga again. Like, as much as I love it, I kind of need a break from it. So,
Yeah, the Star Wars galaxy is too massive with too many things to draw on. Another thing is that Star Wars isn't a genre. It's like okay, it's a an IP. You could do all sorts of different types of genre projects. Like you could tell a Night Sister story like Ventress, like a Ventress movie. Why not? And it could almost lean into horror a bit and tragedy or drama or action. You could have different installments that cross genres that way
that'd
and
be
still be
so
a very
cool.
consistent story. Um, and I think that's something that Lucasfilm needs to learn because they've said a long time ago that, oh, we don't like repeating ourselves verbatim. Like if somebody wrote a book, we don't want to adapt the book directly. It's like, well, realistically, how many people are reading the book? At least the casual fans. The casual fans aren't really getting into that as much, so they could easily do, like, say, a film adaptation or a Disney Plus animated series of Dark Disciple, and most of the casual fans would have never heard of it before. They're not going to bat an eyelash. It's like, oh, cool, new Star Wars content. What a great story, you know. So
Yeah, it would be really cool. Like even if it's, as you said, just a mini series, just adapting Dark Disciple, and giving Quinlan and Asajj the story that they deserved. And as much as it's an honor for her to be buried in her home planet of Dathomir and by the Jedi Order, and then like finally accepting her. Like it was just kind of sad to me. It was just like a cop out, like, oh, we're the Jedi. She's done so much for us. She saved Gwendolyn Voss. Let's give
well,
her a place of honor. Well, you should
well,
have accepted her from the begin with, you know?
that's typical politicking. That's why
Yeah.
Qui-Gon didn't really get along with them very well. That's why Anakin didn't get along with them very well. And that's why the Force didn't get along with them very well. And
No.
we were politicking to win. It's like, you're done.
Exactly.
Uh, but I
So
think they could definitely do a Ventress movie easily. Like there's so much, because again, there's enough gaps in her story that there's all sorts of great stories you could tell with her. And the great thing about Ventress is that because she hasn't made the jump to live action, there's so many casual fans who'd be meeting her for the first time, and so it could be it's like It's like, why not? That's something that's not exclusively tied to the Skywalker saga, so you don't need to reference that directly, and you could have a really great story there.
yeah.
And I think her character kind of deserves to make the jump. And unlike other characters where they tried to do, oh, let's give you the young Han Solo or the young Lando, it's like, no, let's just take an established character who's never been in live action and put them there and see if that works, maybe. Or my ultimate, because they seem to be averse from my ultimate preference, which is to do something completely new. But Ventress, I think, is one I would be in line first. Well, I'd be in line first day Star Wars or anything, but especially for Ventress because that was such a cool character and had because she had so many different layers to her. That it's just a shame that they had to tell that story in the Clone Wars because there's so much other stuff going on that it kind of gets, in a way, it's almost like she's flying under the radar, and you have to really think about it and remember that oh, this happened to her last time. We got to piece this together. I'm like, wow, this is a really great story. When you start really, if you like watch, if you guys go on the, if you have your DVDs or Disney Plus or whatever and watch them her story chronologically, it is a really fascinating story.
Definitely. Google that. Make sure you guys go online and Google like Asajj episodes in Clone Wars. Um, she's got some phenomenal beats. Despite being cast as a villain, I think she's a likable character. Like ultimately, um, yes, Lanny. Her interactions with Obi-Wan are kind of like she's almost charmed by him. Like she's almost attracted to him. I think, but in spite of herself, because he's Obi-Wan Kenobi, who wouldn't be? But um, who would you fan cast for Asajj?
Oh, geez, that's hard.
Both Dave and Mark want to know that. So,
How do I fan cast? Jeez, that's something I'd have to think about. Who do you think? Can you think of anybody? I've never really thought about that till now. Hmm.
I don't know if she has acting skills, but maybe like for the look alone, maybe Bella Hadid. She has like a very like kind of look to her that Asajj has, like the icy blue narrow eyes. Um, if they wanted to play her like a younger age, like mid to late 20s, sure.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd have to really think about that. There's because that's a
that's more
because
for
I
look. That's not really for like acting.
right, right. Because that's the thing. It's like who? Because the thing is, Ventress has so many different sides to her, but some of it when she goes out there, she's like really insane out there. I'm like, who can I think of who's been that insane in a way that isn't like unintentionally funny, but is like really effective? Uh, that would be the right age. Um,
Oh, what is her name? She was in John Wick Chapter 4. She's a singer, but she's never acted before.
oh
Um,
right, the
Rina Sawayama.
yeah,
She's
she was really good in that movie.
she has the right kind of crazy and killer mentality. She was really good with the stunts and the
That's,
emotion
yeah,
or
that's true. I mean, she turned out to be a pretty good actress too for a first timer.
yeah. So
Uh,
I think I would pick her.
that's a good. That's actually a really good choice now that I think about it, because yeah, because he was kind of playing a similar layered character in that film as well, uh, who's obviously a well trained assassin type. So yeah, I would stick with that.
Yeah. For those who don't know who Rena is, I'm trying to find a picture here on the internet.
Yeah, she played the concierge of the Hotel Osaka and the daughter of the uh, Haruki Sanada character, um, who goes on her own mission of vengeance in that film, or declares her intentions to. It is the subject of a cliffhanger of a post-credit scene.
Oh my god, yeah. I'm like, does she? Does she not?
I know the answer to that question. I don't know if they will keep it. Or I don't know if they will stick with it though.
Oh man. Yeah, she was just so good in that movie. You can kind of see her there.
Yeah,
I think she has a lot of potential.
definitely.
What about you guys? What do you think? Oh, Jeff says Anya Taylor-Joy. That's possible. I feel
Uh,
like
yeah,
she has a look.
yeah. Maybe a little when she's a little older. Maybe because then again, I'm not exactly sure how old Ventress is supposed to be, but she does have this particular look. She looks to me like maybe mid 30s, early to mid 30s, somewhere around there. Maybe at most 36, 37 or something.
Right. Like later
Like
on in the Clone Wars. Like maybe
yeah,
30, 31, 32.
yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Hmm. Anybody else? What else do you guys think? Dave says if it were the 90s, he would have said Famke Jensen,
Oh,
which,
yeah,
yeah, she
yeah.
has that
Everybody said
killer
that
look.
in the 90s. Yeah, for sure.
Between James Bond and, X-Men, yeah, she handled her business. Taylor Swift, come on now. The girl can do everything, but not everything. I don't think she could play the assassin yet. Yet.
no.
She needs to prove me wrong. But yeah.
But I think if you go out too big with who you're casting, you run the risk of you see the celebrity and not the character. Like
Yeah.
I like it when they some movies like in Star Wars in the original they went against the grain with the exception really of Obi-Wan and Tarkin. Everybody else were either virtual unknowns or if they had been long-term actors like the actors who played the Imperial officers, most people wouldn't know who they are. And that's you see the character, you don't really see, you don't really see the actor. And that's kind of funny because even after watching all of the other movies that like Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher have been in, and how they all became superstars, I could still go back and watch the original Star Wars trilogy and not see that. Like I don't see the celebrities, I still see the characters. It still works, which
Right.
is surprising because that's not always the case. Like if I see something and it's like, oh, this feels like stunt casting. Like, I remember I watched the new Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile that Kenneth Branagh did. I'm like, this is stunt casting. And it's like I just see the celebrities. I don't see the characters. We did better with the third one. A lot better with the new one that's out right now, Haunting
Oh,
of
I
Venice.
need to see that. I
Yes,
really I
I
started
felt
watching Murder on the Nile and I didn't get to finish it, but I really love Michelle Yeoh and the fact that they got Tina Fey in that one. It's pretty cool. So
yeah, I'd say the third one was the best done of the three.
sweet.
But yeah, so yeah, I was saying like Taylor Swift. It's like yes, you might have the talent to do it, but are you going to see Ventress or are you just going to see Taylor Swift and be waiting for her to break out into song like a
Can you
musical?
imagine? Start singing about how many people betrayed her and how she
What
came
was
up
me
and
type
stuff like that.
song? It's like yeah, no, thanks. Uh,
Like a love song for Quinlan Voss. It's their love
that's
story.
another one. Who would I cast for Quinlan Voss? That's another one I have to think about.
Oh, oh, what is his name? I have the perfect one for him. 'Cause he's kind of mixed race, so at least he looks it because he's got I don't know, like sometimes he's white in Clone Wars and sometimes they give him a darker skin tone.
uh,
Um,
there was an actor. Let me look up his name. I got it right here. He was just in both of. See, I guess here we go. What's his name?
exactly, Lanny. That's why I said Rina Sawayama. Like she's
Never
so
mind.
badass.
Oh, never mind. The guy I was thinking of is a bit too young for that. Because Quinlan Voss is probably also around the same age. Maybe or he might be a little older.
Like
Uh,
30, mid to late 30s.
mid to late 30s, maybe.
Yeah.
So I'd have to think about that one
Uh-huh.
as well.
Let not somebody's somebody just texted me and said Reggae Jean Page from
Yeah,
Bridgerton. I'm like, no, 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 no.
yeah.
Don't do that. He's too pretty. Quinlan's dirty. Quinlan's like,
Yeah, he's rough. He's
earthy.
been through it quite a bit.
Yeah. So you need someone a little rough around the edges for Quinlan, but yeah, it'd be cool to see. So yeah, we're hoping that Lucasfilm and Disney take notes on our fan casting. That'd be something cool. Jason Momoa, Jason does everything. It'd be
Yeah, I
cool.
think he's a little older for that role by now as well.
Yeah, he's like mid 40s now, but
Yeah. Um,
is it Boo 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 the Native American actor Boo Boo? I cannot remember his last name. Um, he was in Twilight. Of course, they're all in Twilight. Um, um, but yeah, as Kat says, if you get Jason Momoa for Quinlan Voss, all you'll be able to see is Jason Momoa or Aquaman. Depends.
yeah, that's true because I kind of feel like kind of broke out because his first breakout role was Khal Drogo, who didn't really get to say much of anything on that show,
Exactly.
and so was Aquaman is really where he got to. It's like okay, now we can see him a bit more. But yeah, I always find fan casting hard, especially when it's like on the spot. It's like I don't know.
Yeah, it's difficult, but a sketch comedy version of Quinlan Voss. Um,
I
so yeah,
know. We'll go find the guy who played that extra from the Moss Espa Cafe, who they based Quinlan Voss's design on, and then we'll just use the aging technology.
do you have a teenage son? Just saying.
Yeah.
We'll just start from there. All right, guys. Well, that's all the time we've got for this week. We ran a little bit over, but we had to, like, get our girl some justice and talk a little bit about her. And yeah, hopefully we get to see more of her in the future. Um, VCN programming this week. Tomorrow night is part 6 Ahsoka watch along with Jeff, Dave, Spencer, and special guest Skip and Bryce. They'll be joining. That's pretty cool. Friday is the Ahsoka after show part 6 with John, Bryce, and Mike, which is really a lot of fun. I like to watch that once finally airs, and I'm like, okay, I'll go back into it and then I'll watch the after show, and so while everything's fresh. Um, Sunday we have the Unifying Force. What are you going to be talking about this week?
We talk about Ahsoka and what we've think about it up till now. And keep in mind, for those who watch it, we recorded our show before the sixth episode dropped. And we also discussed in partly in jest, can Star Wars fans ever be happy? And we had a whole discussion about that and the internet cult and all that kind of, internet YouTube review culture and that kind of stuff. And it was a really fun, lively conversation. So I think you guys will
Oh,
like.
sweet. Oh, it's always fun to just kind of delve into the fan base and just be like, hey, calm down, people, relax. Oh, I'm sorry. No Jeff or Spencer tomorrow, so it's Dave, Bryce, and Skip, and John Notman. So yeah, that'll be
Oh
a good
yeah,
crowd.
seen them well.
Jeff and Spencer are way too cool for everybody this week, so they're gonna go do other things. I'm only kidding. Monday we have Rebels Revisited. We're going to be watching Twin Sons, which is one of the best episodes. We kind of touched into it a little bit this week on Daughters of the Galaxy, me and Kat, and how good it was. It's despite Ezra becoming kind of like a plot device to get to Tatooine, it's probably one of the best episodes of Rebels. So definitely check that out with me and Mark on Monday. And we have some events for you guys. New York Comic Con is a month away. Thursday, October 12th through Sunday, October 15th. And the VCN meetup for that is to be announced soon. I know myself and Mark will be there, and whoever else is in the area will be putting that together and getting some details for you guys soon. Rhode Island Comic Con, always a good time if you're on the East Coast. I can't recommend that enough. We're going to be doing a VCN meetup on Friday, November 3rd, and we also have the family vacation August 2024. And as said often on these shows, tickets will be on sale in December. Very limited slots for this, so if you guys want to go, make sure you jump on that as soon as it's available. We have merch in our merch stores on TeePublic, Daughters of the Galaxy. Look at these swanky shirts. They're so fun. I love that Sabine is wearing our shirts. That's probably one of my favorite ones. And the What Would Hera Do one is pretty great. Dave says big Star Wars announcements for Fan Expo San Francisco this week. We'll have a meetup there too. They announced Mark Hamill doing a signing for official picks online. So whether that translates to him showing up at Fan Expo San Francisco. Sorry, wrong con. We'll see. It hasn't been announced yet, but they'll have a meetup there too. But back to the TeePublic thing. I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted tonight because of this. Daughters of the Galaxy shirts, Rebels Revisited shirts. We have Pride shirts. We have the patriotic shirts, all available in our TeePublic shirt store. There's sales all the time, so make sure you check that out. And final thoughts, Kat?
Yeah, I think it's a great character, and again, I think she's still owed her due, be it in a live action movie or a Tales of the Jedi type miniseries. I think they could do a lot of miniseries like that to tie off more of the loose ends from Clone Wars. That would be really helpful. So, yeah, great character, and who knows, we might see her again. Necromancy, that's what it is. Yeah, I could see her again. I really liked her.
That would be something if Project Necromancer was to bring back Asajj Ventress and use her to get something done. Throwing it out there, hoping it happens in a better way for the character, fitting for the character. But as you said, I can't wait to see where they go with her, and I hope it's something big. So that's all from us this week. Thank you, Lanny. Thank you guys so much for joining us in the chats. Sherry. Kat is amazing. It was so good having you on the show.
Nice.
Getting to represent Asajj and give her some love this week. Hope to have you on again with the next round of characters. We have to still discuss who we're gonna do next, but we have a list. So again, as always, if you guys can think of any Daughters of the Galaxy you want us to get into, please let us know on Instagram or in the chats or anything like that. We're always open to suggestions. And thank you so much for joining me, Kat.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun.
You're welcome. Come back anytime.
All right.
And for Mark and me and Kat, thank you guys so much for joining us on Daughters of the Galaxy. Have an amazing week, and may the Force be with you. Bye.